Engel told me ever that it was
Good morning. Welcome to the morning show. My name is David Williams. This is the MSNBC coverage here of the testimony regarding this whole thing. This is unbelievable. This story of a physical altercation between Trump and his Secret Service agent. This is not what I expected. I expected to find out about what this emergency was. If you recall yesterday when I spoke about it, it was Rachel Maddow who came on and said, there's going to be an emergency session of the Select Committee investigating the failed insurrection January 6, 2021, and no one knows what it's going to be about. What is this thing? Well, we found out exactly what it was going to be about, and it's been dramatic, the testimony of Ms. Hutchinson. That's right, Cassidy Hutchinson in this case has been dramatic. But that whole description that I just heard of her giving the testimony of the altercation between Trump and his Secret Service agent, where Trump reached for the steering wheel of the vehicle that was being driven, and they had to restrain him down, and Trump reached out for the guy's neck. I was like, what? This is outrageous. This is not what I was expecting at all today. I mean, to me, again, I need to sit down and watch some of this and find out what the heck. Again, I've been working all day, doing my day job. Again, folks, a little self-revelation. I sometimes pre-record, and so for me, it's actually the night before, and I'm watching this coverage, and I just saw the testimony, and my eyes just got bigger and bigger. I'm like, this is extraordinary conduct from the man who at the time was the president of the United States, Donald Trump. Anyway, I'll be right back in a moment. You're listening to The Morning Show. Okay, now it is the morning. I only have about 20 minutes. I got to go to work. But I must say, the New York Times in their email to me, an update on what happened with the Select Committee, again, the hearing, the testimony of Ms. Hutchinson. They said, what did Trump know? Well, we know a few things now. We certainly do. Now we know that Trump was aware that his mob was armed with AR-15s, other weapons, certainly. They had tear gas, they had body armor, other explosive devices, and Trump was aware that they were armed, and he said basically, well, they're not here for me. Of course, obviously raising the question then, who were they there for? Well, they were part of the coup attempt, again, the failed insurrection January the 6th. Furthermore, we know that Trump wanted to go. Now, that surprised me. I had been saying for many months that Trump, a coward, when he told people to march to the Capitol, did he go there? Did he lead that column? No, he ran the other way back to the Oval Office and watched it all unfold on TV. Now we know he wanted to go there, was demanding that he be brought back there, so he could lead his people into the House of Representatives, only to be, stopped, rebuffed by the Secret Service in their job, I guess, of protecting the United States, Anyway, Trump apparently got into some kind of physical altercation, it was reported, and he tried to grab the steering wheel so as to change the course of the limo, whatever kind of vehicle it was, that's the presidential limousine, to join his supporters at the Capitol, whom, again, he understood were completely armed with dangerous firearms. And so I think we know a great deal more. Mark Meadows, the guy that basically sat there on his cell phone all day and did absolutely nothing at all, chief of staff to the president of the United States, Mr. Trump, and he's in a lot of trouble with the law, I can tell you. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an ecotech, and I'm going to be going to work soon, but I'm just saying, this guy is in a lot of trouble with the law, and he ought to hire himself an excellent, a dream team of criminal defense attorneys. Now, we also learned once again that Trump said that he believed that Trump said he deserved that to be hanged. Mike Pence. It came up again that was indeed talked about in the Oval Office dining room just off to the side, per the testimony of Ms. Hutchinson. But that story about Trump feeling that way, that Trump deserved to be hanged, I've had that story before. Also the story about Trump supporter, extreme right-wing attorney L. Lynn Wood, who said Pence deserved to be shot by firing squad for basically the same feeling as L. Lynn Wood's hero, Trump. Yes, they felt the man should be executed, but really they had no charges. Now, everyone, again, wants to make Mike Pence a hero, and I understand. Everyone, once again, a round of applause to Mike Pence for doing his job. Again, Mike Pence, he just followed the law. He asked several attorneys. He asked those attorneys, do you think I can in any way help Trump stay in power? And they said, no, Mike, you don't have that power. There's nothing that gives the vice president that kind of power. So again, absolutely. But yeah, Trump pissed at Pence, and accordingly, Trump said he deserved to be hanged. I completely disagree. Anyway, Trump's in a lot of trouble, but this we knew about already from the get-go. Again, will anyone listen to her testimony, Miss Hutchinson, or will they go after her? I'm going to bet the latter. They're going to go after her. The right-wing media, they're all gearing up to go after this witness before the American people to discredit her story. Absolutely, that's what they're all about, whether it's Fox News, Newsmax, One America, Right-Winger Radio, whatever it is, they're going to go after Miss Hutchinson for their, blatant mean. Okay, I'm getting out of here. In mobile mode, some kind of great tune. It looks like Billy Joel's up again. Yes, Billy is always welcome. Going to give it his all once again for You Got It, Lena.
Stood on the tracks, waving her arms, leading me to that third rail shock. Quick as a wink, she changed her mind. She gave me a night, that's all it was. What will it take until I stop kidding myself, wasting my time? Whoa, there's nothing else I can do, 'cause I'm doing it all. I'm living it up for later. There's nothing in it for you, 'cause I'm living it up for later. We laid on the beach, watching the tide. She didn't tell me there were rocks under the waves, right off the shore. Washed up on the sand, barely alive, wishing the undertow would stop. How can a man take any more? Whoa, there's nothing else I can do, 'cause I'm doing it all for later. I don't want anyone new, 'cause I'm living it all for later. There's nothing in it for you, 'cause I'm giving it all to later. Failing at school, losing my friends, making my family lose their minds. I don't wanna eat, I don't wanna sleep, I only want later one more time. Now I'm in my room, watching the tube, telling myself she still may drop over to say she's changed her mind. So I wait in the dark, listening for her, instead of an old man saying, stop kidding yourself, wasting your time. Whoa, there's nothing else I can do, 'cause I'm doing it all for later. Don't want anyone new, 'cause I'm living
his 1980 album, Glass Houses, an album in which Billy Joel came of age musically. He toughened up, according to Ultimate Classic Rock and their story from a number of years ago. It's a fantastic album with a lot of great tunes on it, and sometimes they pop up. So if I want to do an All for Lena in mobile mode, while I'm heading over to the Gulf gas station, I definitely would do it. Absolutely. Now, I don't know what, and now you know. Again, this is Sir Elton John with a key signature song here at ApartmentKaraoke.com. with Mona Lisas and Mad Hatters. I call it doing the Mona Lisas. Now, there's a funny story about Tom Hanks in his iconic role as Professor Robert Langdon. You guys know the whole thing, the whole Da Vinci Code thing. Well, he was there changing his clothes, thinking that he was before the original, when unbeknownst to him, they had moved the original, that's right, to another location. It's an interesting story.
While people run you through, and I thank the Lord, there's people out there like you. I thank the Lord, there's people out there like you. While Mona Lisas and Mad Hatters, sons of bankers, sons of lawyers, turn around and
All right, definitely light, clear morning, not a cloud in the sky, and it's about time for me to head off to my job. Yeah, I just stopped off here briefly at the Gulf gas station. I'll be back. You're listening to The Morning Show. Okay, I'm on my lunch hour now at the Gulf gas station. Headline from the Wall Street Journal. Trump knew that the mob was armed and he sent it to the Capitol. Staffer said, of course, that's a staffer, Cassidy Hutchinson, and her testimony yesterday. The USA Today says aide portrays a crazed Trump. Yeah, everyone knew this information, that the guy was a little wacky to begin with, but certainly him trying to grab the steering wheel of the presidential limousine and change its direction from the White House and back to the Capitol building is a very bizarre story and shocking thing. And so here I am and heading back to my car, Malibu. Tonight on the program, I'll have the nominees, 6 great nominees songs, you understand. And, well, it's the song of the month here at ApartmentKaraoke.com for July. The reigning champion for July from last year, July 2021. Why, that would be Natty with his great song, July. Of course, this year, fantastic song by the Decemberists called June Hymn. Now would actually be a good time as I get back into my car for it. June Hymn again. It's the 29th of June, a Wednesday, and last opportunities, to do it today and tomorrow. Well, of course, I can do it beyond the month of June 2022 anyway, but yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. And tonight I will read that story that I had talked about recently regarding Billy Joel, the album Glass Houses, and how it toughened him up from ultimate classic rock from the year 2016. It'll be a great story, and so I'm looking forward to that as well. So let me see if I can type that in here real fast. June Hymn by the Decemberists. This one, again, is posted out there on YouTube by Van Halen Hound.
Here's a hymn to welcome in the day, heralding a summer's early sway, and all the bulbs all coming in to begin. The thrush's bleeding battle with the wrens disrupts my reverie again. Pegging clothing on the line, training Jasmine how to vine up the arbor to your door, and more. Standing on the landing with the warrior shouldered all the night before. Once upon it, yellow bonnets garland all along. You were waking, the day was breaking, a panoply of songs. And summer comes to Springville, young. A barony of ivy in the trees, expanding out its empire by degrees, and all the branches burst to bloom in the bloom. Heaven sent this cardinal maroon to decorate our living room. Once upon it, yellow bonnets garland all along. And you were waking, the day was breaking, a panoply of songs. Summer comes to Springville, young.
around. Beautiful day here upstate. 77 degrees and sunny at about 10 minutes to noon. I'll be right back. You're listening to The Morning Show.
I'm gonna be the greatest.
All right. Is your anxiety way up, my fine listener? Well, according to the story I'm looking at, it says here, for many women, the reversal of Roe, that's right, Roe v. Wade, is causing a lot of anxiety for women out there, and it's no surprise given what the court has done, taking away a right that most people took it for granted for the last 50 years. I dare say there are very few people that are certainly of a child-rearing age or getting pregnant that do not remember the fundamental right to have an abortion if that's what you choose to do. So, yeah, some people are, a little on edge. So it says here the reversal of Roe versus Wade is more about abortion. It's about freedom that's been taken away, leaving them angry and scared. Recently, I've talked about Clarence Thomas and how he promises to go after same-sex marriage, homosexuals, and contraception in this country. It was put out there. It certainly was. He said he's not going to stop at Roe. He's going to keep going, Clarence Thomas. Now, of course, Justice Alito said that was it. They're stopping right there at Roe. And it's not to be construed, their opinion overturning Roe, to include any other thing. But I wouldn't believe him, not for an instant, especially when Clarence Thomas is who he is. Now, tonight on the program, a story from The Hill, a fine source of news. Clarence Thomas has always been a person of grievance. Says who? Well, Hillary Rodham Clinton, who went to law school with the man and knows him fairly well. A person of grievance. So I'll have that story from The Hill. Hill is a great source of news, and I enjoy reading stories from them. I'll also probably have a story regarding David Crosby, legendary musician, and his five favorite albums, not of his own work, of other artists. That's right. I'm looking forward to reading these 5 favorite albums and possibly including a song or two from maybe a couple of them as part of the program tonight. Absolutely. And I think there was another story. Oh, yeah, I mentioned the Billy Joel thing. The album Glass Houses. That will almost certainly involve singing of some Billy Joel music tonight as well. Okay, what do they got here at the heartbeat of the Tri-County?
Call it magic, call it true, call it magic when I'm with you, and I just got broken into two. Call it magic when I'm next to you. And I don't. No, I don't, it's true. I don't want anybody else but you. I don't. No, I don't, it's true. I don't want anybody else but you. Call it magic, cut me into two. I'm of all your magic, I disappear from view. And I can't get over you. Still I call it magic. You're such a precious jewel. And I don't. No, I don't, it's true. I don't want anybody else but you. I don't. No, I don't, it's true. I don't want anybody else but you. I wanna fall.
WCDO, AM and FM in Sydney, Bainbridge, and Unadilla.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. At a summit in Madrid, NATO declared Russia the most significant and direct threat to its members' peace and security and vowed to strengthen support for Ukraine. Meantime, Ukraine is focusing on a Russian attack on a mall.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky included a video in his daily address that he said made it clear that the Kremenchuk mall blast by Russian forces was intentional. It's clear that the Russian assassins received these coordinates for this missile. They wanted to kill as many people as possible in a peaceful city in a regular mall. Russia has claimed that they were targeting a nearby arms depot which detonated and set the mall on fire. Survivor Ihor Ishenko lay in a hospital bed with bandages covering his leg. He remembered the moment the blast struck. I went to Amstel to get my phone repaired. I went inside, got coffee. I walked for 5 to 7 meters, and there was a red and orange flash, then a rocket. Ukraine's Prosecutor General has warned Ukrainians to expect a similar strike every minute. I'm Karen Chamas.
Sources tell the AP the FBI has opened a widening investigation into sex abuse in the Catholic Church in New Orleans. The AP's Jim Mustian reports investigators are exploring whether predator priests can be prosecuted under the Mann Act.
The Mann Act essentially applies in these cases when there's an allegation that children have been taken across state lines and molested or sexually assaulted by these priests. And in the current investigation, these are allegations involving priests taking children to camps in Mississippi, amusement parks in Texas and in Florida.
The probe could deepen the legal peril for the archdiocese as it reels from a bankruptcy brought on by a flood of sex abuse lawsuits and allegations church leaders turned a blind eye to generations of predator priests. This is AP News.
I'm Joel Clark, a Select Quote agent, with a true story that could save you hundreds
All right,
of
well,
dollars.
there's your, national news from the Associated Press. Of course, the molestation of children by priests, a subject of the film Spotlight, starring Michael Keaton, where he plays a guy by the name, I think Robbie was his name, who leads a crack investigative team up at the Boston Globe, where they spotlight on a particular issue and focus on it, extremely narrow focused on it and getting to the truth of these things. If you haven't seen that film, a fine Academy Award winner from way back in the day. And what was the other thing that they reported on? I'm trying to think on my top of my mind what else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, it was just the Ukraine again. The Russian spokesperson, their claims are a lie. They attacked a shopping mall in Ukraine with 2 missiles and killed a lot of innocent civilians. Now they want to say there was an arms depot and that's what they were targeting and they missed. They shouldn't even be attacking an arms depot in Ukraine. Actually, they ought to get the heck out of Ukraine. I think that's our policy, is for him to stand down, the dictator Vladimir Putin. Yesterday, one of his spokesperson was beating the war drums and threatening World War III upon people of the world. And so I went after the guy. I don't even know his name. I don't really know his name, and I'm not going to even attempt to look it up or pronounce it. I'll be right back with Lunchtime with the Oldies with Craig Stevens in a moment.
Buckle your seatbelts. You're taking a ride back in time. It's Lunchtime with the Oldies on WCDO.
Love
WCDO, Lunchtime with the Oldies. Hello, good afternoon. I'm Craig Stevens, and we go back in time together to the 50s, 60s, and 70s. That was Frida Payne and Band of Gold. We kicked off the show with a classic from the Hollies, Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress. Coming up this hour, musically, The Temptations, a classic from David Essex. I've got wonderful music from the Youngbloods, the Zombies, Tommy James, and more. Our Lunchtime with the Oldies program brought to you by Corbin Curley and Certified Financial Planner, Ed Curley, with Wells Fargo Advisors, Route 7 Oneonta. When it comes to saving for your future, like retirement or the kids' college expenses, give them a call. They will give you a free review of your finances. The number is 433-0333. That's 433-0333. Coming up for you right around the corner, we've got one of the all-time classic love songs by The Temptations. That's next, WCDO.
Hey, fisherman, have you been to Barbertown?
All right, thank you, Craig. I'll be right back. Again, listening to the morning show here at apartmentkaraoke.com. I won't have time to sit around and listen to all those things. I got to leave in a few minutes to get back to my day job. I'll be right back. Okay, speaking about July songs of the month, as I did say tonight, I will read those nominees. Back in 2020, this was the winner. Seals and Crofts with their huge hit song, Summer Breeze. That was the July 2020 song.
See the curtains hanging in the window in the evening on the Friday night. Little light is shining through the window, lets me know everything's alright. Summer breeze makes me feel
the video posted out there by JCV Dude, a great video filled with a lot of summary things in it. And look at the time, I got to get going. I'll be back, folks, again this evening. Thank you for listening. Okay, it's after work. It's about 10 minutes to 5 p.m. I left a few minutes early today. And getting started right away, we have had rain this afternoon while I was working, so, it's all wet outside, and the temperatures, dropped off considerably, about 10 or 15 degrees from lunch hour. I'm going to start right away with this Hillary Rodham Clinton and her remarks about Justice Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court from The Hill and written by Dominique Mastrangelo. I've read some of Dominique's stories before from The Hill. He does a great job. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is slamming Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, whom she described as a, quote, person of grievance, end quote, in an interview yesterday. She said, I went to law school with him. He's been a person of grievance for as long as I have known him, she said to Gayle King on CBS this morning. She said, resentment, grievance, anger, women are going to die, Gayle. Women will die, regarding Mr. Thomas's decision to end Roe. Going on with the article, Justice Thomas has been on the receiving end of sharp criticism from women's rights groups and Democrats following the court's blockbuster decision overturning Roe v. Wade, the landmark ruling, granting abortion rights, and other people, including myself, an independent, not a registered Democrat or Republican. Just want to make that very clear. Other people as well having a problem with this decision. Justice Thomas has long been an opponent of Roe, and in his abortion opinion, said that the court should reconsider other rights such as contraception, same-sex marriage, LGBTQ plus rights. Thomas, he says he's going to go after him. To me, I read that when he says the court should reconsider other rights and perhaps end them as well, I consider that as a threat to the American people. I certainly do. Now, Justice Alito said it's going to stop right here with Roe. He says this should not be construed as meaning anything else. But as I pointed out earlier, these things can and often do change. Secretary Clinton said he has signaled in the past to lower courts, to state legislatures, to find the cases, pass the laws, get them up, meaning get those law cases up to the Supreme Court. She went on to say, she's describing his approach, saying, I may not get them the first time, the second, or the third time, but we're going to keep at it. Again, ending rights that we've all taken for granted as normal civil liberties in the United States of America. If you send these cases up to him enough times, eventually you'll find a way to end them. Thomas has also been rebuked by Democrats over his refusal to recuse himself from cases related to the January 6th failed insurrection at the United States Capitol, despite his wife Ginny Thomas playing a prominent role in organizing efforts to keep Trump in power. That's right. She is a huge, again, right-winger on the far right. I had a story where she went down to Arizona. I think she might have been involved in that so-called fake slate of electors, trying to overturn Arizona's legitimate vote for Mr. Joe Biden. Ms. Clinton ran for the presidency in 2016 and lost to Trump. She has since written a best-selling book about her campaign and has engaged in dozens of television interviews, documentaries, and speaking gigs, offering her thoughts on politics, the media, and pop culture. Now, it says here from The Hill, a great source of news, that they have removed their comments section. They say, as there are many other forums for readers to participate in conversation, we invite you to join the discussion over on Facebook or Twitter. This thing used to have a lot of comments from people, both sides. I guess they decided to just, wash their hands of all that, and that's fine by me. And that's a very quick and to the point, great story by Dominique Mastrangelo. I'll be right back with the next one, Billy Joel, in a moment. All right, a little New York State of Mind in the background, the great song. This one's from his Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2, originally released on his album Turnstiles, 1976. Yeah, we take you back here at apartmentkaraoke.com, kind of like Craig Stevens does whenever he does a Lunchtime with the Oldies. Take you back in time to some of these great songs. Now, this thing here is really more about the album Glass Houses. I have a glass here I was thinking about, but I said I better not. I might break it. It really belongs to my landlord, M, so I'm not going to mess around with the glass. Okay, so this one is from Ultimate Classic Rock, How Billy Joel Toughened Up on Glass Houses, written by Jeff Giles. Billy Joel closed out the 70s with two of the best-selling albums of the decade in The Stranger and 52nd Street. But instead of getting complacent after finally tasting success following years of hard work and occasionally bitter disappointment, fame just added sharper corners and greater heft to the chip he had on his shoulder. That was the impression given, anyway, by Joel's seventh solo effort, Glass Houses, which arrived in March of 1980. Right from the cover, which depicted a leather jacket-clad Joel preparing to toss a rock through the front window of a very nice place, the album signaled a tougher Billy than the who'd peered forlornly out at the listener from the cover of the album 52nd Street, wearing a tie and clutching a trumpet. I was taking quite a critical pasting by 52nd Street because of the commercial success that I had, Billy told In the Studio in 2010, going on to say, I was aware that there had been a great deal of, I guess we could call it, Billy Joel saturation for close to 3 years. As he went on to explain, part of his shift in sound and image came from the knowledge that he had to prove he was more than the artist people recognized from his recent hits. Billy said, I could have come out with a record that would have guaranteed a certain amount of sales just by repeating either the Stranger album or the 52nd Street album by doing something similar. Frankly, I would have been bored to do that. I would have been a dead duck career-wise. You have to discard an audience to pick up another one. It's a definite temptation to repeat a successful formula, but I have never done the same thing twice. I don't care what anybody says, Billy told Playboy magazine in 1982. After Stranger, I could have done Son of Stranger, but I've never done that. To keep me interested, there always has to be something new, something different. In addition to audience and songwriting concerns, Billy realized as the 80s dawned that he graduated to a different level of venue as his sales skyrocketed, and he needed to come up with material more suited to bigger buildings and larger crowds. Billy said, we had 2 or 3 years of playing in arenas and coliseums, and I recognized that I needed to write bigger music. Ballads don't always fly that well in an arena. You need big sound. So I started harder edge songs, more guitar-based songs. It was fun to do. That was probably the most fun album that I ever made. It happened fairly quickly. The band loved playing it, the audiences loved the material that was on the recording, and we were on a roll. Part of the fun, Billy later pointed out, was willfully destroying his increasingly soft image, and not just by upping the guitar quotient on the record. As he revealed after Glass Houses was released, that photo of him holding a rock was something of an inside joke. Billy said, that's actually the house I was living in at the time. I saw a photo and I thought, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, and the name stuck. But there was also a subtext to it. Billy said, it was, I'm going to throw a rock at the image people have of me as this mellow balladeer. We had been doing rock and roll before, but there happened to be more of it on this record. The old thing about people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, I don't believe it. I think, why not? Take chances. I really wanted to throw a rock at my own house. Some of the same critics who accused Billy of relying too heavily on ballads were just as quick to suggest that Glass Houses was an attempt to glom onto some of the trendier sounds he name-checked in It's Still Rock and Roll to Me. Particularly, as Playboy pointed out during their conversation, new wave acts like Elvis Costello. Billy said, I like Elvis Costello, but I have never tried to duplicate anyone. If I consciously try to emulate anybody, it's the Beatles. I've tried to compose in a certain style. For instance, I was thinking of Ray Charles when I sat down to write New York State of Mind. But that's different. I am inspired by performers, but I don't try to copy people. We didn't set out to make Glass Houses new wave. We looked at it as a rock and roll album. As he argued in the song, It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, Billy saw the new trends he was accused of chasing as little more than new versions of old sounds. It's just a reaction to a rediscovered past and a rejection of Emerson, Lake, and Palmer using multi-deck synthesizers, he told Rolling Stone magazine, of punk and new wave in particular. The Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen, bored the hell out of me. If I go to a disco and hear one boom, sup boom tempo all night, I get a headache and split. If I go to a new wave club and all I hear is F you and the guy spits on me all night, Billy said, I'm sorry, I don't like it. If I go to a folk club and all I hear is some girl strumming a guitar singing, give me some wine and cheese, please, I don't want it. I would rather go and hear a good top 40 bar band, which is what we still are, basically. Few bar bands ever taste the level of success Billy enjoyed with the album Glass Houses, which gave him his second consecutive #1 album, third straight top 5 album, and netted 2 Grammys against 4 nominations on its way to selling 7 million copies. Glass Houses spawned 4 singles in the States, with It's Still Rock and Roll to Me hitting #1, and 3 more, You May Be Right, Don't Ask Me Why, and Sometimes a Fantasy, reaching the top 40. Billy Joel started the 80s the same way he ended the 70s, as one of the biggest rock stars on the planet, and his star would only continue to rise as the decade continued. But as he insisted in the wake of Glass Houses, he still felt like a blue-collar kid from Long Island. Billy said, I'm not content. I'm content, though, not being content. I have a theory. I don't think you ever are really satisfied. I don't worry about being satisfied all the time. All I'm looking for is a little relief now and then. All right, great story there from Ultimate Classic Rock. And, of course, there will be a song from this album, well, Glass Houses. So 2 little Billy Joel stories that I usually tell. Now, that rock that I'm seeing a picture of it here on YouTube, the iconic one, the album cover from Glass Houses, holding the rock in his right hand up, you know, and stuff like that. He's got the leather jacket on, the jeans. There's also other pictures out there. There's one like with him facing the camera and like tossing the rock up with one hand. And it says like, I don't know, it has some stuff written on the picture like, hi, it's me or something like that. It's Billy. And it's kind of funny. But the rock itself reminds me very much. It was about 15 years ago, you know, and I was driving with my ex at the time in the St. Louis area on like I-70. And this tractor trailer truck in front of us kicked up this rock. It flew through the windshield, just skimmed by the left side of my temple, you know, smashed the windshield. Obviously, the rock ended up in the back of the van, you know, and I still have that very same rock on my shelf at home. It looks a lot like that. It's a hefty thing, probably about the size of like a softball, and quite a heavy rock. And so what I was going to do was the You May Be Right. And so I think that's a great tune. The other Billy Joel thing I sometimes do is I say, Billy Joel, give me a call, sometimes in association with the other song mentioned in the article, Sometimes a Fantasy. Give me a call, 573-680-0356. The offer still stands. Feng and I will be happy to meet you anytime you want at our favorite Italian restaurant. It's on Long Island. It's somewhere on Long Island by the water. It could be North Shore, South Shore, out in the Hamptons. Again, Faye would be very upset if I made mention of the fact. I talk about that. And, of course, Fountain de Trevi, where the restaurant was that he was talking about in his favorite song of his own, as told to Stephen Colbert, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. Let's get that glass breaking. That's the main thing. To me, you want to have the glass break. Again.
But it just made me a lunatic. chair. I told you dirty jokes until you smiled. You were lonely for a man. I said, take me as I am. You might enjoy some madness for a while. Now think of all the years you tried to find someone to satisfy you. I might be as crazy as you say. If I'm crazy, then it's true that it's all because of you, and you wouldn't want me any other way. You may be right, I may be crazy, oh, but it just may be a lunatic you're looking for. It's too late to find, it's too late to change. You may be wrong, I know, but you may be right. Try to say you may be wrong, I know you may be right. You may be wrong, but you may be right. You may be wrong, but you may be right. You may be wrong, but you may be right. You may be wrong, but you may be right. You may be wrong, but you may be right. You may be wrong, but you may be right.
All right, posted out there by Billy himself, the great tune. When I come back, David Crosby and his favorite albums of all time in a moment. This one's posted out there by Michael Stallings. Crosby's still in Nash with Sweet Judy Blue Eyes, and it's a long enough tune that I think it'll last the entire story. I'm hoping. And I've had a great story about the song Sweet Judy Blue Eyes and how, you know, it started out basically as a shorter song because that's all the radio stations would play. It was Stephen Stills who hawked it around the different stations. Well, if you won't play the full song, which is a little over 7 minutes, how about this one? You know, a shorter version. Eventually, you know, they all started playing. It's a great thing. So anyway, I got to get right on top of this thing. I've had a lot of great David Crosby stories. Most recently comes to mind, David said he was retired from touring, but he still continues to work in the studio. That was a great story. The story about Crosby, how he plans to go into the cannabis business, you know, out there in California. And a lot of great stories. The story about David explaining how the music industry has changed, whereas in the past you used to have album sales and record stores. Now with online streaming and everything, it was that one time, you know. He talked about the fact that he went down to the mailbox and he pulled out the mail, and there was like a $5 check inside there from YouTube for people playing his tunes. And the guy was pointing out, you can't live on a $5 check, which makes sense to me. And that's where he explained how he was selling the publishing rights to whoever. I don't know who it was, UMG, the Irving Azoff Group, Sony Music. There's a lot of people buying up those albums. I've talked about that for the last couple of years as they've occurred whenever a story popped up on my phone. Recently it was, in fact, I didn't have a story about it, but I read it, you know, on my off time. I think it was Stephen Stills working with the Irving Azoff Group. But let me jump right on to this thing in terms of today's story about David Crosby, and really having more to do with, as I mentioned before, his 5 favorite albums, and not Crosby, Stills, Nash, or Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young albums, or albums from his solo career, but other artists. Story written by Jack Watley over there with Far Out Magazine. Jack does a great job as well with stories. There aren't many figures in the world of rock and roll as, well, they characterize him as divisive. I don't know that I would say he's divisive, but I've had some stories about that, the personal reactions. I wish all four of them could get back together. Wouldn't that be great, you know? Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Based on the stories that I've read, the odds seem against it. Now, David, a former member of the Byrds as well as Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, has long been heralded as one of the most outspoken rockers around. Garnering applause and anger in equal measure, David continues to be a polarizing man in the modern era, traversing his image as a folk rock hero to become a social media marvel and a consummate musician. With such an unstoppable and voracious take on all things musical, the need to ask Crosby's opinion on any hot topic in our sonic world is generally a redundant task. Normally, he is happy to offer up such opinions without so much as a second's hesitation. But what are the singer-songwriter's favorite albums of all time? Below, well, I'm going to give you the answer. David said, "My current music collection is probably more singer-songwriters than anything else. But there's a lot of jazz, a lot of folk music, and a lot of world music, and a lot of classical." Now, given David's distaste for conformity, the singer naturally has a dislike for any boundaries. I resist the idea of genres and labels as being really significant. I don't think they are. Trying to say it's this kind of rock or this particular flavor is really deceptive. I think it's just people trying to label things so they don't have to think about it. It gives them a tag, something they can label. It's generally, I think, more that they don't think about it. However, when given a chance to assign a few labels of his own, picking out the 5 albums he couldn't live without, David was a little more enthusiastic. Okay, now I'm just going to start mentioning what they are. His first 2 picks come from the same band, Steely Dan, so he, like I, huge Steely Dan fan. A group so indefinable in their sound that they have often skirted under the radar of even the most avid music lover. Picking out perhaps their 2 most beloved records, Asia and Gaucho, Crosby effuses about the former. Stunning writing, stunning production, stunning singing, outstanding playing, but songs, unbelievable GD songs. It's too good. They're all fantastic. But perhaps saved his most authoritative stamp of approval for the album Gaucho, saying, "Best GD writing anybody was doing or has done. Nobody's topped it." Another artist that one might expect to find on Crosby's list is Joni Mitchell and her 1971 masterpiece, Blue. Joni and David dated in the 1960s and would be a pivotal factor in introducing David to his future bandmates from Buffalo Springfield, Neil Young and Stephen Stills. The singer has even gone as far as to suggest Joni Mitchell is a far more impressive talent than Bob Dylan. Picking out her classic, LP, David notes probably the best singer-songwriter record ever made. A similar vein continues as he picks James Taylor's album Gorilla, on which David featured, as well as Heavy Weather by jazz outfit Weather Report. David goes so far as to say, it's one of the best jazz albums that anybody ever made. It rounds out a list of essential albums that would perhaps make the greatest Sunday afternoon soundtrack that we could think of. Below, we have the full selection of David Crosby's favorite albums, which are, again, Asia by Steely Dan, Gaucho by Steely Dan, Blue by Joni Mitchell, Heavy Weather by Weather Report, and Gorilla by James Taylor. That's fantastic. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do one of their numbers. Well, in this case, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and I'm helplessly hoping that's the one I'm going for anyway. So let me see if I can find this in here.
Gasping at bliss. 'cause love isn't lying, it's loose in a lady who lingers, saying she is lost and choking on her love. They are one person, they are two alone, they are three together, they are four for each other.
All right, posted out there by Stephen McIlvaine. Kind of ruined, I know, by that little drop off. Again, that was a news story from the New York Post, and what it says, it's about Ghislaine Maxwell, who was sentenced for her involvement in the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. Ex-con lays out what awaits her behind bars, scrubbing toilets, maggoty food, and beatings from inmates. I'm not going to read that story. I'm going to have one Steely Dan number on one of those numbers off that great album Asia, which happens to be my favorite of their albums, in just a moment. He sings, "Tell Me What You're Thinking, This I Want to Know." Timothy B. Schmidt. I think this is a fantastic song. I've been enjoying it so much. Simple Man, from his brand new album, Day by Day. Folks, buy it today online. Anyway, this one's going to be Peg. The great story that I had on the program, it was one of those news, rock and roller stories, was back when they were doing it in 1977. They had invited Don Henley as well as Nicolette Larson. You might know her song "Lot of Love" from back in the day, in to help with backing vocals on Peg. But it turned out that, the band members didn't like it, Steely Dan, and so they had their producer let them go, with their most sincerest apologies for wasting their time. And at that point, they brought in Michael McDonald to do the backing. I'm going to do some backing as well on this thing.
I see your picture. You're living life above it. This is your big debut. Like a dream come true. So won't you smile for him? I know they're gonna love it. Big. I like your picture. I keep it with your letter. Done up in blueprint blue. It sure looks good on you. And when you smile for the camera, I know I love you better. Hey, come back to you. Hey, we'll come back to you. You see it all, it's your favorite horror movie. I know I love you better. back to you. Pain will come back to you. You see it all. So it's your territory. It will come back to you. It will come back to you. You see it all. It's your territory. It will come back to you. It will come back to you. The shadows fall. You see it all. It's your territory.
Now, sometimes what I do after that is I talk about the 3D imaging qualities of my cardiovascular ultrasound machine, Phil 2, or indeed I talk about favorite foreign movies that I like, but not tonight, folks. That'll do it for the morning show for today. I hope you join me again tomorrow on the program. Have a good night, everyone.